Good morning, everybody. I'm Nate Conroy. I am a venture catalyst in Lynn and Benton counties in Oregon with Oregon Rain. Really excited that you were able to join us this morning. I don't know about other people, but today I'm especially happy we got some rain happening outside my window. First time in a long time here in Oregon, and we need it. So it is literally raining in Oregon, and it's a great day to be a part of Oregon Rain and have an awesome webinar today. We're going to have Mackenzie Thomas from Cascade Virtual talking to us about delegation and team building for startups. As a little housekeeping, everyone should be on mute. I ask you to stay on mute, and then we'll kind of open it up for questions via chat at the end. But we're really excited for this presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about Oregon Rain, just really briefly here, and then we'll go ahead and jump into sort of a little bit of background for why we thought it was important to invite Mackenzie to present to us, and then we'll let her kind of take it away from there. So first of all, so Oregon Rain is partners and is actually invited into communities in Oregon. We're in a number of different counties and growing. And our job is to build inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems and economies. So this event is free and welcome to all, and we encourage you to visit our website, OregonRain.org, to find out more about events that are happening both virtual, as COVID allows, in person. But we really pride ourselves in being out in the community, listening to entrepreneurs, trying to get them what they need. And in fact, I'll use that as my segue. As I've been out in Lynn and Benton counties talking to businesses, to entrepreneurs, this topic around how to hire, how do you grow your team? When you start out, it's maybe just you and a couple co-founders. How do you start to find talent and grow your team? Make sure that you are focused on the most important stuff. And that's especially a challenge that we're hearing about during these COVID times and people coming back to work. And I know even in Oregon Rain, all the venture catalysts like myself, we're all startup founders and owners ourselves. And so this is a topic even that I've thought a lot about. And so Mackenzie was somebody that we found out about, somebody who's actually been through and been a part of some of the Oregon Rain programming, and thought that this would be a really interesting topic, and a topic that, again, it will be an ongoing point of interest for entrepreneurs in our region and outside the region. So Mackenzie, I thought people might be interested. Your email signature, so if you reach out to Mackenzie, send her an email, get in contact, but she's got this really compelling email signature that I'd just like to read aloud here. So it says, "Know when to fire yourself and harness the power of delegating. Your results will be astronomical growth." And that's from a founder and inventor, an Oregonian, right here, Tofurky. And I think I just found this really fascinating to think as an entrepreneur about firing yourself from certain tasks, certain parts of the business, and how powerful that might be when you're willing to sort of be clear-eyed and be like, if I was somebody else, if I was a third party and I was performing the way I'm performing with a certain duty of my business, might I fire myself? Might I look for a replacement? And I think if we're honest with ourselves, right, a lot of times the answer is probably yes. And I think that seeing that as a positive or as an honest avenue to growing your business is really powerful. So that's enough from me. With that, Mackenzie, I'd love it if I could turn it over to you, and maybe you could share your screen and we can get going.
Okay.
Let me see if I also try to stop sharing mine.
Okay.
Maybe that'll allow you to share yours.
Okay, let me know if you can see it.
Yes.
Okay. Let me hit the present button here.
I like that. Like a boss. I like that.
Like a boss. Yes. No. Yeah. No. Thank you for having me. I am a product of Oregon Rain. I was lucky to be in the Rainmakers class about a year ago. And I cannot say enough good things about Oregon Rain. Just the way that you guys go about helping entrepreneurs is seriously unmatched. And I train a lot. I look into trainings a lot, and truly I've not found anything that trains and provides the resources that you guys do. So psyched to be here. So psyched to kind of like what you described, the delegation part is the pure kryptonite and Achilles heel of all people in general, but entrepreneurs for sure. It's a difficult one. All of us struggle with it. But for sure, what I have found out, and the kind of the reason for this whole business and the whole being, is that it is that key to unlocking what it is people are trying to do. So yeah, delegating like a boss. And then, yeah, building that team. People are always like, I can't afford to have staff. I can't afford to have anybody. I need to do this myself. There's no other way. I need to work around the clock and get it done. And that is just a myth that we tell ourselves. So yeah, excited to dive in and to dive in and do all of that like a boss. So I will click over to the next screen there. So common challenges founders face when it comes to delegation and building a team. And these are the kind of things that we run up against when we meet with clients, and just things we've also, myself have told myself many, many times. And so we'll kind of go over those. The first one being the many hat syndrome, which is the one that we kind of described about delegating, right? And so that's the idea that the more hats I wear, the more successful I am, which is not true, right? And so the reason that we all went into business is to do that thing that we're in business for, whether that's making coffee mugs or growing flowers for sale, or whatever it is that we do is what we should be doing. And whatever it is other people do, we should be allowing them to do that. It benefits us, it benefits them. It's like how the world goes round. People have been doing it for centuries. So there's that one. The second one is the no one will do this like I will syndrome, which really that does apply when it comes down to the genius of you that is creating the business that you have and putting it out there. That does not apply when it comes to things like social media marketing, if that's just not your jam and it's not something you can keep up with all the time because it changes all the time and you always have to keep up with it. So why not offload that to somebody who can just get it done efficiently and just like keep the ball moving forward. The next one, unrealistic goal syndrome, right? Like we all do that, right? Like, oh, this is my business. This is, mark it all out and I'm going to make $1 billion this year. This is my year. 2021. This is it, right? We all do that, right? But I think what a lot of us also kind of come to realize is that the quicker it rises, the quicker it falls, right? Like you really have to, that idea of organic growth is a real thing. And it's a real thing that allows you to stay in business for as long as you want to be in business, and also allows you to create a business that you can build an exit strategy for, right? Like eventually all of us come to a point of growth in our business or get to a certain age or whatever it is. And we say, okay, I've put all my blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. Now what, right? Do I leave it to my kids? Do I sell it? Do I have something I can sell to somebody else who wants to take it over? Right. And so that comes about with having the opportunity to grow it slowly and kind of ebb and flow and make it its best self. Right. And so, and then the unwillingness to adapt, right? Things, we live in a world where we all have to adapt almost daily. I mean, different social media things that come out and different opportunities and ways. I mean, COVID, right? Slapped everybody every way possible, really, and really showed us all very quickly how quickly we can adapt, right? And maybe that was the wake-up call that a lot of us needed, because it showed us quick and easier ways to kind of be more efficient and get things done and reach levels of talent and the type of talent that we may need that might not be immediately around us, but we know that we need it for our own businesses. So definitely that one. And then it takes money to make money, which it does take money to make money. But if you are a new business and you're just getting out there, you don't need a website with every bell and whistle that costs you $20,000. You just don't. You can get that done, get it up there and continue to evolve it as your business evolves for the, Squarespace prices of $12 a month and be good to go and be in it to win it. And they've got a million little widgets and things that'll do everything that you need it to do, and people won't know it's not a custom website. Those kinds of things is, I guess, what I mean by takes money to make money syndrome. It does take money, and you will have to invest in your business. Everybody has to do that. Time, money, all of that, but you don't have to spend $1 billion on startup costs. Just unnecessary. So any questions? Do you have any questions on that, Nate? Does that kind of resonate with you?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I think, I wrote down here, I'm taking notes, but I sort of wrote down and circled. I just think part of McKenzie, what I think is so compelling here is I just think there's a lot of truth, in what you're saying. It's not even like a hypothesis. I think every founder can relate to, I was going to say at least one, probably at least three of these syndromes, and so I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we've all been there, myself included, probably 1 million times over. We are still there. Some of us are still there. It's a daily struggle.
Yeah.
Okay. And so a little bit about sort of me and sort of this business and sort of what we're even doing here. And so my connection to Lynn County, shout out to Sweet Home. My family is from there, and I had the fortunate opportunity to work with the Chamber of Commerce for a little over a year, which even owning a business, working for the Chamber of Commerce and working within Sweet Home was truly my favorite thing I've ever done, favorite job I've ever had. Love that community, love the way they do things. So shout out to those guys. This is a picture of me and my mom. We started this business together. So I'm a person who's always liked to work, I was one of those career people, didn't have my kids till I was 30, didn't get married till I was in my 30s. And so that was kind of just, happy doing that. And so when I had my first son and I was home, I was like, ooh, this is great, right? The shame that comes from women for saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it out loud. This is great. However, I would love to also be working right now. And so through that, I found virtual assisting, and it kind of allowed me that outlet. I'm also a creative person. And so it allowed me the outlet of using creativity, helping other businesses thrive, helping them kind of grow in the background. And so I was like, wow, this is great. At the time, my mom she was a professor at Zayed University in the UAE for about 20 years. Wow. And she was coming back to the United States, and she was like, wow, this virtual assisting thing is great. She at the time was planning to retire, and she said, there's a lot of craziness going with the virtual assisting. And there was, the clients get scammed depending on who you work with. You just don't know who's out there. You're responding to an ad or hitting someone up on Facebook, and you don't know these people and they don't know you. And so there was a lot both ways. Clients wouldn't get their work, assistants weren't getting paid. I mean, there was a ton. And so we thought, well, if we had a platform that allowed a little bit of a barrier to that, we should think about doing that. And so the platform that we provide only hires in the United States, although we staff globally. We can work with clients anywhere, but the assistants that we have are only in the US. And that is because we are able to background check them, vet them based on their resume, not on referral, right? Like we go through, what are your jobs before and what do those people say about you? And then we test them based on the skill set they say that they have before they ever meet clients and before they are moving forward with doing actual work for people. We also provide the oversight that is making sure work is getting done, making sure work is progressing. We also perform all of their payroll. So people that come on to get assistance don't have to do payroll. They also don't have to manage that tax form at the end of the year. And so that was the reason for it. It was, how do we safeguard this thing? It's a treasure. People need, COVID, people want to work from home. People need to work from home, or other reasons that they might want to work from home. But how do you do that safely, right? It's kind of the wild, wild west in a lot of ways for that. So that's kind of why virtual assisting, why this, and then small businesses. It's really what I found amazing. And one thing I learned being part of the Chamber of Commerce, right, is that it's amazing the businesses people come up with. But what's even more amazing about that is that truly there is a tribe for every business. There are people, no matter what this business is, there are people checking for that business. There are people who want to participate, who want to purchase, who want to be a part of it. it's just about finding those people, right? And I love that aspect of small business. I love the creativity and the individualness that comes with small business, and being able to like pick your tribe of people and support those people. And so ours too, we build for small business, and that's kind of who we cater to as well, just because, I mean, it's great. I mean, small business is amazing. People really, the ingenuity behind people overall is just, it's amazing. So psyched to work with small business. And then delegating. Yeah. I mean, I fell into that category of everything that I listed on the previous slide, and realized that it wasn't, even with a virtual assistant business, right, where this is what we do, we help people delegate. It was not until we started hiring those same assistants in and having them work the stuff for Cascade that Cascade started to thrive. When I was doing it myself, it was just, I was exhausted. It wasn't nearly what it could be. It just wasn't what we wanted it to be. And so once we began to hire on, which we hire internally, so the assistants that we had, we said, hey, how would you feel about coming on as a staff for Cascade? And so we took on 3, and they have revolutionized everything that we do. And they truly are the reason that we are moving forward the way we are, 100%, for sure. So
Reminds me of that old what's the old hair growth commercial where it's like I'm not only an owner, I'm also a client.
I'm also a client. Yes,
yeah.
That's us. It's so
Yeah.
true. And a true testament, delegating works. We don't have all the ideas, multiple heads are better than one. It just is what it is. It's so true. And you have to, eat your own dog food, right? Like if I'm going to tell you guys to delegate, that has to be my mainstay. So shout out to it. And it's interesting you use that quote. I also use that Seth Tibbet quote, and I got that quote from being a part of the Rainmakers course. He was one of the people that came in and did a presentation. And when he said that, I said, oh, wow, this guy gets it. And I've been using it ever since. So shout out to Rainmakers for having him, such a high level entrepreneur that he is. And then, he's so intuitive about this kind of stuff. So it was great. Yeah, so that's us in a nutshell. And so now, if you don't have any questions or kind of just about us and getting started.
I think I'll look here. I think that it makes sense. This is awesome. So let's have you keep going, and then I do. We definitely have some questions. We can kind of discuss at the end, but I'll let you keep going, then we'll jump in.
Perfect. Okay, so after putting people in the mode of delegating, after going through the list of things they want to unburden themselves with, but trust somebody else to do so they can focus on their genius. Now it really comes down to, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I have a business, and okay, great, I want to delegate, I have my stuff ready. So how do I do that? How do I hire somebody? How do I build staff around myself that cares as much about my business as I care about my business, and they feel that driven and that connected to it as well, right? And so a lot of people kind of think virtual assisting, depending on whatever the site is really just virtual assisting, and sort of that's what it is. But different sites and different opportunities cater to the different needs that you have, if that makes sense. So for example, with Cascade, right, what we do is our company pairs you with a team that works with you to scale your business. So our assistants would be your team. They would stick with you. You would stay with those assistants. And the assistants we tend to partner you with, we don't do a jack of all trades approach, right? So you wouldn't have one assistant that just wears all the hats, right? Because that's not how it works. So we would pair you mostly with an admin that can take the administrative tasks and personal tasks if you need help setting appointments for your kids, or checking in with things, or ordering things that are in your personal life that you just don't have time for, and then all the admin duties that go with your business. And then we would pair that with a person that comes on to focus on the marketing part, social media marketing specifically. And so those two would work in tandem, usually with me as somebody who kind of helps to evolve the business, and then they manage those tasks every day. Versus, right, so that's kind of how we do it. But there's other ways, there's other sites, there's other ways to have staff that come into your business. Some people are familiar with Upwork, I usually compare Upwork similar to when people post something on, Facebook, and they're like, hey, I need a VA, and people respond to that. And those are people who hang out their own shingle, which a lot of people do. And they say, hey, I can do that for you. Here's my details, come check me out and let's have a meeting. Upwork is similar to that. They have people from all over the world that go on there and post themselves. And on Upwork, they'll have reviews, different types of reviews that you can, sorry,
No problem.
that you can check in who they are, check what people are saying about them. And so that's usually the marker for, is this person a trusted person or not, being evaluated by friends and family. They're being evaluated by people who have worked with them in the past. And then there's people per hour. People per hour is great. We use them, in fact, because of the quick turnaround if we don't have any assistance available. And what people per hour does is those quick project-based, generally creative type tasks that you need done. You've got to be careful with some of those because some of them go against your organic reach if you choose to look for someone to help you do marketing. For example, if they're like, hey, I'll get you 20,000 likes in 2 days, right? You can do that, but it goes against, it would hack your account forever, basically, because none of these people are related to what you're doing. They might not be real accounts, that kind of thing. So you want to be leery of those types of things, but they are great for things like, I need a video edited. I'm, trying to find someone to do a logo, cheap and quick. Things like that. I want to create a commercial. There's a lot of people on there who can create a commercial for your website and create I need to turn those notifications off, sorry, for you to have available. So I guess to break that back down, so there's different types of virtual assistants and different types of virtual staff that you can bring on for different reasons. A company like ours would basically manage your entire staff, but they would be working for you and you would have those same assistants each time. A company like Upwork, you would hire kind of hanging out their shingle and on your own. And either that's kind of somebody who works with you continuously or somebody who does things here and there. Another one is Fancy Hands. You might have heard of that one. That's more project by project, really task by task by task. And so there's a whole group of people that work there and you would not get the same person all the time, but you would kind of throw your tasks up there and as people are available, they would just start going through and working on them. And then there's people per hour, and that is more project-based, creative type work, things like that. So just to kind of shine the light on the differences between what's available when you're looking for remote staff. And then hiring on your own versus using an agency. People that come to Cascade, a lot of them have tried other methods before and they've worked with other companies or, not companies. They're kind of just going it alone and checking it. And so they come to us when they might be at a point of frustration or, hey, I've tried this and, maybe they're really kind of checking us out to see like, how are you different and why should I do it this way? And that kind of thing. It happens a lot because once you hire on a staff member, be them a contract worker or an employee, you then have to manage that, right? And so you have a staff member there, you're going to have to manage their payroll. You're going to have to make sure that they have the appropriate taxes needed. If they get anything else through being an employee of yours, there's that part. There's vacation, oversight. There's a lot that comes with taking on a staff member that becomes a job when you have one, be them remote or otherwise. And so that tends to be the biggest barrier when people kind of find upon our agency and then meet with us and kind of get a lay of the land with us, is that those sort of things come off, and those are sort of the back end kind of sellers for us. For example, we an agency like ours, we staff front end staff for companies because then they don't have to manage that and they have people answering the phones and that kind of thing. Or working with entrepreneurs, it doesn't then add, like after we get through talking about delegating and adding literally another position to them because now you're HR, it takes off the HR as well. So we do all the backgrounds, we do all the payroll, we do all the taxes, we recruit and replace if somebody wants to leave, we add to the team if you need somebody else, we oversight daily. And so those are really the two major differences that come into play that we have noticed when people are asking us to maybe kind of take over where they needed staff to come in that's virtual. Okay. And then protecting yourself and your business. A lot of people also, not so much anymore. It's becoming a lot more common to have remote staff. I think COVID helped with that a lot. Yeah. But, people still are worried about anything happening, as they should be. People should always be alert. People should always be thinking about, these are people that I've never met before. I'm giving them my, like a daycare, right? I'm giving them my child here, my business that is my baby, and I'm asking them for their help. And, what if, what if? And then also getting comfortable enough. A lot of us clients that we have, they'll have assistants paying bills on their behalf, or purchasing things on their behalf. And there are ways to get around giving out your details to people, which you should never do, no matter who it is, no matter how long you've known them. You should, if they,
Yeah.
whatever it is, don't do it. We don't do it. We generally send people over to LastPass. And what LastPass does is it allows you to put in all of your passwords, any of your banking or credit card information, anything that you would need somebody else to use on your behalf. It allows them to log in, to use it, to make purchases, to do whatever you need them to do without ever giving them a password, numbers, nothing. And so it goes two ways there too. One, they're protected. If something ever happens, they're protected as well. They didn't have the passwords. They couldn't have done anything with them other than log in and do exactly what you asked them to do. And then on your end, if they disappear, if they, get a new job, if they, whatever happens, you don't have to go in and change all your passwords. You don't have to cancel any cards. You don't have to do anything. You just take them off your LastPass and they no longer have availability. So that's one way to protect yourself when you're hiring remote staff and people that just you may never meet in any way other than through a computer.
Right.
And then if you have current staff, we go through discussions, I guess, with people. If they say, hey, I have staff and I want to make them remote now. I think COVID taught a lot of people what works remote and what doesn't, but it's not for everyone. There's not every single person doesn't fall into the category of having remote staff, and every single business doesn't fall into the category of having remote staff that could manage what they need them to do in a remote way, unless that person is working remotely. Like for example, you work for Rain, but you are in the area and you work remotely, and that makes sense. But you couldn't be like in Texas and work for Rain and work remotely. With that type of thing is kind of where we're at. And then also it's just not a good business owners should just sort of know themselves and know what their limitations are in terms of having remote or not having remote. And if you find that you need remote and it's most affordable and it's the best way to do it, probably you might want to meet with somebody like me, like a delegation. Sorry about that. If you find somebody who you want to work remotely and you're just not sure about it and you just don't know what to do, meet with somebody like me who's a delegation expert and works with small businesses to flesh that out, to kind of help you see how that could fit, or if it could fit, or if it is a fit, before you dive in that way. So just, being cognizant of it not being for everybody. And if it's not for you, that's okay too. It's okay. It is what it is. Okay, contract employee versus traditional employee. So we have a lot of people who, when they begin to work with us, it's really I can't afford to have staff. And the reason that we hear that a lot, I think, is because people think of it in from a traditional employee standpoint, right? And so they don't realize that these employees that you are hiring remotely are traditionally contract employees if you are hiring them in a capacity that works with your small business. That's not true for everybody. There are major corporations that hire remote employees as full-time staff and as a traditional employee, but for small businesses, traditionally it's a contract employee. And what that means is that they manage their own taxes at the end of the year, though you would be responsible for giving them a 1099 form as long as they made above a certain amount. And they're under it's a contract for service kind of a thing. And so the hire and fire is much easier. There's no unemployment to pay. It's sort of hanging out your own shingle and being on your own, but you are operating as if you are the staff of this company, if that makes sense. And it might sound like that's not in the best interest of the person who's the contract employee, but what we have found with the assistants that we work with and the remote staffers that we know, is that it does end up being in their best interest in a lot of ways to manage themselves as a contract employee versus coming on as a traditional employee. So we have heard that from people, that they feel like they're selling somebody short by having them as a contract employee versus having them as a traditional employee. But it really kind of just comes down to the makeup of who you are hiring, what you're hiring them for, and what you've agreed upon to have them do. And then the other question we get a lot is reasonable pay, right? There's a lot of seminars and things out there for virtual assistants and people working remotely that tell them, do not accept less than like $30 an hour or something like that. While there may be people making $30 an hour somewhere, if you are a small business and you are hiring virtual staff to work in an admin and social media marketing capacity to begin, $30 is far outside what you should be paying an hour. So just gonna put it out there from somebody who works in this field. It's above what is necessary in that arena. Where it typically falls, like for our business, for example, the range falls right around $21-ish an hour. And that's fair. That's a fair amount. That's like a fair market amount. And then you kind of see what it is that you're getting from there. You kind of also might want to see how many clients that person is working with to make sure that they're able to get done what you need them to do. A lot of assistants work with quite a few clients, but what's great about the $21 an hour mark is most assistants find that a comfortable range to only have a couple clients and be able to continue to function well, instead of spreading themselves across millions of clients so that they can make enough money with what they're doing. And so that's kind of also the reason you want to make sure that your assistants are paid kind of at least the fair market value for what they're doing, because it prevents them or keeps them happy enough, like anywhere, keeps them happy enough to not need to do a ton more, which would eventually affect you and affect your business if they can't focus on being part of your team. And so there's the hourly rate where people can work and then get paid. There's also the monthly bucket of hours, which is kind of how a company like ours would work. And what that does is it prevents you from going over, right? Having your assistant work 1 million hours and you lose track of time because you're a small business owner and here they come to you with their pay hours and you're like, oh, that's $1,000 more than I thought. Oh my gosh. And so what we do is the monthly bucket of hours. And so it's basically a savings account. You purchase your hours, your assistants work them. If you need more hours, we would touch base and say, hey, you've got this much left until your subscription goes back up in a month. They feel like they would need this many hours to get done. And then we would negotiate top-up hours. Or some people say, you know what, we're good. Let's just wait till next month. And then things just kind of go on hold until that happens. Or they say, yeah, this was a great start, but like my business is taking off. Let's go. And so they upgrade to another set and upgrade and downgrade as they see fit based on the sort of ebb and flow and seasonal times of their business. And so that's available. And then there's that project base that we kind of talked about with people per hour, Fiverr, those types of things, where you negotiate that price up front and then they turn out that project and then you shoot them the money that is owed to release it. And so, yeah, that's kind of what's reasonable this day and age in terms of paying people and typically what a good virtual assistant would expect to get paid. Okay, well, that is really all I had. I hope that was helpful, and I'm always available for questions. And yeah, if anybody ever needs to talk or just kind of talk it through, and I'm happy to help anytime.
No, perfect, Mackenzie. And I think too, I mean, that, again, what I think is so interesting about this is I bet people can really relate, and I know I can relate, just even, some of the challenges that I hear around evaluation of the hourly rate. I'm glad you brought that up, and it's hard to know, as obviously as an entrepreneur, you're trying to be smart with your money. And so sometimes, that can be a challenge as you're trying to figure out, what's the appropriate rate maybe to pay someone. I also think it's interesting, the model you were saying, the bucket of hours. And you mentioned it as sort of a way to de-risk in terms of somebody going way over hours, and you're trying to manage that. I also think it's interesting, and I wonder, I bet maybe there's some people in our audience too that, as an entrepreneur, you're thinking about, gosh, if I could just have, 10 more hours a week or whatever, right? Like, gosh, what could I do with that? And so I think some ways too, it's exciting to sort of de-risk the idea that you could hire somebody and you're like, yes, like I know that 10 hours of something that I would otherwise be doing is going to go to somebody else. And that can just even be sort of, psychologically a benefit.
That's a great point.
Really great points about, security, I think, and utilizing a tool like LastPass. I hope that people wrote that down. My last chime in, just my reaction, and then we'll get to some questions that we have here. But I also think it's really interesting, there's tools now where, probably folks have even used them where, it's quite easy to record yourself on your screen or something, right? And so as you're thinking about tasks that you might give to somebody, I know that in the past, right, sometimes I've thought about, gosh, if I'm going to write out a whole document about here's how I, update my bookkeeping software or whatever, just record yourself doing it once, and then that's a living thing that's there. And nothing so hard to type something out, type a description, right? Nothing like being able to see it on the screen. So I think that's really helpful.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So Mackenzie, a few questions. Appreciate your time, but a few questions. So talk about maybe your experience working with entrepreneurs and how they might think about maybe kind of bundling small tasks. In other words, I think that there's some people out there who might say to themselves, well, I have this certain task that does take me time, but it's not a ton of time. And I think sometimes mentally you can kind of go, is this really something I could give to somebody else? Because it's not a huge time commitment. At the same time, we all know that sometimes you do those things that only take a few minutes. And then, if you really were to track it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's been, half an hour, 40 minutes, having to log in and out or whatever. But talk to me about that. How should people think about maybe opportunities to give a virtual assistant, kind of multiple smaller tasks that if bundled together actually take up quite a bit of time?
Yeah, well, I think what we have found out, because we also build SOPs for the companies we work with if they require it. And the reason for that is
and SOP for folks might be
so how to run their business,
okay.
a standard operating procedure. Yeah. So
Okay.
that, whoever else steps into this role can kind of, as the business has grown, kind of identify those ways of doing things. What our assistants do typically is that is literally how people delegate all the time. They take small kind of things and kind of piecemeal them over. And then assistants kind of begin to build strategies, because that's when you think about it in terms of you're a small business owner and here's the things you don't want to do, but you're actually siphoning them off to somebody that this is their actual job. And so what they do is they take those things and then they build them into a day in the life of your virtual assistant and working for your company. And so they build those into daily routine type items as needed, or do we really need to be doing this type stuff if it's unnecessary and you're doing it, or how does this fit along, or what else can I take from your plate off of this specific area if we are going this way, or have you thought of this, if we're doing this, you might be able to take one piece of content, for example, and spread it across your entire area versus making millions and millions of pieces of content, that kind of thing. And so it really depends on where you start and what you have and what you can send over. But starting it that way is really honestly a good way to get going. And depending on who you're working with, they should be able to turn those into actual ways that your business flows, if that makes sense.
And then sort of build on that too, Mackenzie, you have a really great sort of set of questions. I know that, as you help people think through what they might be able to delegate, because again, I think that's part of a challenge too sometimes is, and you mentioned it, what could I potentially delegate? I know that one of the questions, is something along the lines of what do you hate to do, or what are the things? Talk to me a little bit more about some of those questions, and how might an entrepreneur get really excited about about the potential things that they might be able to give to a virtual assistant. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we all have parts of our business, right? That's necessary, especially if you're wearing all the hats. It's a necessary thing to do, but you absolutely hate doing it, but you do it because there's no one else to do it and it has to get done and the cycle goes on, right? And so, yes, when we first have people learn how to delegate and come over to where we're kind of helping them kind of build out, where do we start with you? Two of the major lists that we get back are always the things I absolutely hate doing and would rather anybody else do them. And then the other one is, although it's hard for people to come to grips with, is the things you shouldn't be doing, right? So you can do them and maybe even like doing them, but you're not the best at it. And if there was somebody who could do it quicker, better, and just get it done for you just like that, you would want to offload that and let them do it. And so those kind of things we work primarily. First, the hates come in, right? And then we kind of get those moving. And then we work with them to develop what are the things that you hate, but you should probably be having someone else do.
Yeah. And it's powerful too. I mean, I just think it's powerful because I had a mentor once who sort of said, most startups fail because the entrepreneur decides to stop, and that's a hard thing. And part of that is because it's burnout, right? It's hard. And so some ways too, if you could offload things such that you knew that they were going to get done, even if you could do them or whatever. But I think so often, again, and my job is to speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, small business people. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of sense of, I should be doing that. I just didn't get to it, or, it's that this little thing is not that hard. Why can't I just do it? Again, everybody always says, oh, it's so quick. Here's the quick way to, whatever it is, right? Write some blog articles or, make some videos or, update your bookkeeping or whatever. And so I think just as sort of a burnout, almost therapeutic assistance that can come from a virtual assistant can be really powerful. So that's great. Let me look to see any questions here. So here's one. So what about folks that have like an in-person or kind of a brick and mortar business, right? Like how might they still leverage a virtual assistant as a way to help out with HR challenges?
Yeah, well, we actually have a couple of clients that we work with that are in exactly that frame. So one of them they kind of fall under the realm of, we have staff, but we want to not manage them anymore. They need to be here, but we don't want to the burden of all of the HR. We don't want to do the HR that comes with this. And if somebody, that kind of thing. And so for them, they work every day there on the job, and that's their job. And we manage the payroll, we manage the hourly, we make sure that their times are in on their timesheets, that kind of thing. And then this client just kind of, pays their fee. If they're getting close in hours, we'll send over timesheets and say, hey, this month you might need to upgrade. You might need 20 hours. Everybody's moving along. And then we can also add people as well. If they have people on the ground and they say, I really do need a social media campaign. Nobody here does that. We are, we're out picking the fruit and selling it out here. And so we're not really doing social media. We have pictures and stuff, but we can add somebody remotely to manage that kind of thing too. So there's that way. And then also there's kind of the mixture where you have a company who has everything that can be done online, like a medical office. You can do things online, but because people are physically coming into your place, they'll be, sitting in your waiting room, waiting to come in while you go different places. We have an acupuncturist that we work with, and people are coming in physically and they're going room to room, and they need somebody out front to manage that kind of thing. So they do have somebody, boots on the ground, that is there basically to manage those things and to, offer. I think she has things that she does as giveaways or sales and things that she also does online. But then she also their hours are limited. And then she also has somebody that can work online to manage the other parts. And prior to that, the same person that was doing the in-person was also doing the online. So they would just check in those hours when they came in that they would on our system as they would have done if they were at home. So there's a lot of ways to do that. We unfortunately can't recruit anymore for on boots on the ground people, because it's just what we've understood about that is that it really takes a certain person that's going to be right there with the person all the time. And it's hard to tell that if we are not physically going to be working with them. But to recruit for the online portion, we are always able to fill those spots.
I think what's really, I think, very logical, or but also interesting and maybe thought provoking is this idea of, that no matter what the business is, even in a heavily in-person one, there are tasks that could be potentially done by somebody else virtually.
Well, and like you said, taking off their plate, it makes their day a lot more efficient when they know we're coming in here to focus on whatever this is, and that somebody else's wheels turning behind us while we just focus on this. Yeah.
Nice. Maybe we got time for one more. Well, let me ask. This is sort of different here. That was picked up on. You mentioned in you're telling your own story about the opportunity that being a virtual assistant might provide. And so Oregon Rain, we work with a lot of rural communities, where and increasingly so, maybe there's good internet, there's but they're rural communities, so there's not always large employers in town. I guess, and I guess I should say too that a lot of our entrepreneurs that we work with are maybe they're self-funding for a bit, right? So they're looking for opportunities to maintain some revenue coming into the family while they're getting their business going or whatever. So I guess maybe we'll just speak to that a little bit about actually, sort of a segue here or connected topic is, being a virtual assistant. What would you say to that?
Yeah, no, what I found out about virtual assisting when I started is the amount that I learned just right off the bat, that maybe was not available to me in the location I was in, but the amount I learned from other assistants and the things that people would ask me to do. And I go, yeah, let me look at that. I mean, shout out to YouTube, right? You can learn anything on YouTube, right? So, and just different trainings and things I would take. And so, yes, I love the idea that, and we have a lot of stay-at-home moms or people with smaller children who just really want to work and just really thrive in that environment. And what's great about virtual assisting too, kind of depending on your clientele, you can work at 3 a.m. or after the kids are asleep, or kind of depending on what role you take. I mean, if it's one of the 8-hour a day, you'd have to be there clocked in, but there's a lot of opportunity to build your own skill sets.
Maybe in short bursts sometimes too. Maybe you have, sort of, you can,
Or if you're a creative, managing someone's creative and building your own skills in marketing. And so rural communities specifically, I love the idea of virtual assisting being available to people who can jump on and make the money they need to make for their families and things while they're home. It's an absolute right now. I mean, in the US, it's new. It's not as new elsewhere, but it's sort of new in the US. And I'm excited to be part of paving that remote workforce kind of area where these things become very normal, and women who choose to stay home or anybody, can take advantage of the opportunity and connect with other people that they may never meet, but businesses they connect with and visions they connect with and things they want to be a part of. Money doing it.
Well, and I think it's wonderful. And obviously, again, our clientele, the folks that Rain supports are inherently people who are go-getters, they're entrepreneurs, so I love that you mentioned even, sort of the opportunity to figure it out, to make it happen. And then, heck, at the same time, I'm sure as you're doing something for somebody else, you can apply all that learning back to your own thing. And so there's kind of a cool win-win there. Well, Mackenzie, thank you so much for this conversation. Thanks to everybody who, expressed interest and gave us feedback to even have this conversation and joined us. And so thanks for putting up your information. Again, folks, I would encourage you to reach out to Mackenzie if you have follow-up questions or you're interested in her service. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
It's
Thanks
been
for
wonderful,
having me.
very enjoyable,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
we'll be in contact. Talk soon. All right. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thanks, Nate.